Welcome to another episode of Inside Visitor Management. Very excited today to have Ian Bernstein and Tim Enwall from Misty Robotics join us. Thank you both very much for taking the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I guess I should say, and Misty Robotics actually coming to here as well. So I appreciate you two taking the time to do this. So robotics is a hot topic. We're seeing a lot more people getting into it. You all have a longer history, I would say, than a lot of people in actually bringing a successful product to market and now applying it to the visitor management access control marketplace. So we'll dig into that. But before we do, why don't you introduce yourselves, if you don't mind, and tell a little bit about your background and what you're currently doing at Misty.
Great. I'll just start quickly. Tim Enwall, head of Misty Robotics. I've been building businesses for 25 years. The last 12 or so were in the Internet of Things space, where I founded a couple companies, and one of them sold to Google. And then I met Ian, who's been building robots for 25 years, as he'll describe, at Sphero, and we spun Misty Robotics out 3 years ago. So super excited to be talking to you and running a robot company now instead of an Internet of Things company.
Yes. Thank you.
Ian Bernstein, head of product at Misty. She responds to her voice, so she just beeps. Started building robots when I was a kid. 10 years ago, started a company called Sphero. We built a robot ball called Sphero, a licensed BB-8 for Star Wars that was sold in Apple stores and Best Buy and all over the place. And some of that personality side led to Misty, thinking about how do we get more robots in people's homes and businesses that aren't just on the industrial side or vacuuming, and selling a robot to developers. So that was the inspiration behind this company when we started this project about 4 years ago, and then spun it out into Misty Robotics about 3 years ago.
Very cool. So good deep history in that. You've brought a product to marketplace on the robotics side, so this isn't really like you're not guessing whether you can do it. You've done it, which is great. So if we focus on the application side, can you talk a little bit more about your vision, if you would, of a product like Misty coming into a visitor management application? How does it work? You know, what are some of the things you're thinking about when it comes to that application?
So one aspect is the personality side, and that was a lot of the learnings that we had when we were at Disney working on BB-8. We realized that if you can kind of create a little bit of a connection with the user, you can have a really great experience. So when we think about access control, Misty is a receptionist, maybe doing health screening, temperature screening in a business. Our solution really leans into that experience side for either the employees of the business or the customers that are coming into that business, and making sure that an experience that may have not been that fun, like, yeah, you have to go in and you have to get asked all these uncomfortable questions and get your temperature screened. Like, we want to make sure that's a good experience. And even like in our testing so far, we've had a lot of people, real world testing out in businesses. Like, people want to get their temperature taken a second time just because it was so much fun. And you don't get that with a lot of other solutions that are out there right now.
So is that's an aspect of it then, I guess. So the the humanization, if you would, of the robots and gamifying it, is that, and again, stop me if I'm using the wrong terms. You please correct me on that end. But everything from like the eyes blinking to the way the head nods to things like that. So what are, I guess, those key aspects when you talk about fun, but then also I would say making it a bit more relatable, if you would, of a situation where it might feel uncomfortable. Like, I could see it where a lot of solutions now, it's like they're going to take this heat gun to people's head, and that doesn't feel good. Just the visual of it is bad things, right? So, but talk to me a little bit about the difference of how you bridge those.
Yeah, so one side of it is, definitely, the differences between a person doing the, temperature screening, things like that, versus Misty. So one is just a lot of the questions that you get asked. People get uncomfortable answering some of those questions. And, sometimes it's just like, hey, do you have COVID? You're like, okay, no, that's not a big deal. But other questions, get into, different symptoms that you might have. You're like, especially when there's a lot of people around, people feel uncomfortable like answering those types of questions in a public space to another person. So Misty, they feel a lot more comfortable. The other side, we do have like, just in our testing, some surprise, we call them like surprise and delight moments for people. So Misty can recognize like when somebody's coming into the space or exiting the space. So in our testing, when people are walking out, she can say, hey, like, thanks, have a great day. And so many people just turn around and smile. And it just, even after they've gone through the experience many times and are, walking out of their business and get that exit message, it just makes them feel happy, and you can tell. So there's a lot of different things we can do like that with a solution like Misty that you wouldn't be able to do with other solutions.
Yeah, there's definitely a personalization in the human side of that aspect. I guess so. So help me understand also this, because through a lot of conversations you have with this. So do you see this as an augmentation to the human side, or is this a replacement of? And I'm not trying to be controversial of like robots replacing humans. That's not what I'm getting at. It's just I'm trying to understand sort of the application process, right? So if I'm a business looking at doing this, would I use this as like an initial layer of protection or initial aspect of interaction to then bring to, like, how do you view the introduction of robotics into the workplace?
I mean, we really want it to be, I wouldn't say it a replacement, because, people didn't have temperature screeners 3 months ago. Right, a lot of the people that in businesses that we're talking to that are doing health screening are existing employees, like taking out of their time that they were doing other things, and they're putting. And the other reason is like the person that's doing this health screening for every single employee that's coming in, every single customer that's coming in, is putting themselves at a much higher risk. So we don't want a person doing that. We want something like Misty doing that. So there's a couple of reasons. And it is, in some ways, it's augmented. So if somebody does have a high temperature, or they answered yes to one of the screening questions, like you have COVID, and they said yes, she'll notify that person via email or text message to come and have the rest of that interaction to see what needs to be done, or maybe manually take their temperature. Just to double check, like maybe they just came in from a run or something and their forehead is hot, so they can be asked to, stand to the side for 5 minutes and then retake their temperature manually.
Okay,
Yeah,
I like that.
I would sort of add to that, Lee, just, at a broader level, when we think about adding, reception skills to the health screening, who are here to visit, let me get them engaged. Or even if you think about, integrating with that company's standard, phone system, when you call and say, what can I help you with? Well, sales, this, that. If Misty was doing that, it's no different than any of those systems. And they really are augmentations. They're not replacements, because, as any customer service interaction you have, some percentage of those customer service interactions or some of those visitor interactions can be handled fairly routinely, and some of them can't, right? There are exceptions. There's depth. Some folks really want to speak to a human because they're upset, or they have a very specific sort of inquiry. And, you're not going to see robots replace that in the same way you haven't seen, again, so the tablet-based reception products replace humans, or phone systems entirely replace humans.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate that. And actually, you triggered my thought process. I would say, after the way that you approach it does make sense. Like, here you are. I've always felt it kind of interesting that, they put all of this security behind the person that they put out in front, sort of like, that person's susceptible to whatever's going on in the front that you're protecting the back. But this gives some that ability to separate that. and bring maybe rethink the way that the lobby, if you would, or the greeting is being used. So with that in mind, what are some of the use cases or the verticals, I guess, that you're seeing adoption or interest? You know, are you seeing this in the medical side of the world? Are you seeing this, and an answer could be everywhere, but I'm just curious what areas that you're seeing interest from.
Yeah, so we've seen interest from technology companies in their offices. More recently, we've had a lot more inbound from dentists, medical practices, some hospitals. We have a quasi-manufacturing organization that has a lot of blue-collar workers that we're working with. And then, yesterday we got an inquiry from a Ferrari dealer. So, presumably, hey, I do have this interface where I have these concerns, my customers have these concerns, and and this would be a super differentiated, very high-end service experience compared to my alternatives.
It's pretty much all over the map right now, and it's almost more. It seems like it's more tied to what businesses are opening at this time versus a particular segment. And it's more so maybe the culture of the business, or the culture or the particular executive at that business, and how they value the experience and the quality of the experience for their employees or their customers. So we find people that come to us really value that experience, and they see Misty and see why it's such a great product for doing health screening or temperature screening in this particular use case.
Yeah, no, I can see that. That could make sense. So just a sort of nuts and bolts type stuff, if you don't mind. So I'm guessing Misty comes in the package that we see there. There's not 16 different versions of Misty. And does Misty sit on the desk, or how does Misty work?
Yeah, to step back a little bit. So we started shipping Misty in September of last year, and our customers were basically 100% developers or organizations with developers. So our customers were buying Misty to write their own skills for the robot in lots of different areas. So we were seeing a lot of interest in the children's therapy space, in the elder care space, some in the receptionist space, things like that. And then out of nowhere, of course, COVID hit. A lot of those customers had to sort of pause the work they were doing with kids, with elderly people. So we as a company decided, instead of just being 100% focused on supporting developers, we should develop out our own solution during this time where we're sort of waiting for our customers to come back online. So we looked at a lot of different spaces and realized a huge need for Misty as a temperature screener. And that's sort of how we got to where we are today. So it's really a development platform. So when you look at the different versions, this particular version, we had to add actually in her visor. Normally there's we call it a structured light sensor. And that's used for mapping and navigating the space. She can actually drive around the space to do different tasks for people. But in the temperature screening application, she's just sitting on maybe a table or the existing receptionist area. So there's a thermal camera that we've added for this particular robot. You get a temperature reference device, we call it, and that sits next to the user on a stand, the person getting temperature screened, and that allows us to get much higher accuracy than most of the systems out there. Really any of the systems that don't use a reference temperature device. And then it comes with a few other things like a marker on the floor that says, please stand here, so the user knows where to go, and some other signage. But it's all turnkey. Like, we wanted to make it super simple so that a customer of this temperature solution, they're not a developer, they're just a business owner. They just need a health screening solution for their business. We just wanted, plug it in a couple different settings that you set, and it just works for them.
What's interesting there, though, is the backbone that was built that you can. It seems that the tools are set that if somebody did have the chops, that could create. So it's also a platform as well as a tool that you have.
Yeah, absolutely. Like adding other things, like adding a full receptionist skill to it, or doing, NDA checking,
That was gonna be my
sign
next question. Like the workflow stuff that happens. It's one thing to take the temperature, but then you have the workflows that happen out of it. Are those workflows built out, or is this plug into, if I had another visitor management system, let's say, or an access control system, could this plug into those workflows?
So I mean, like today we don't have that
No,
built,
no, no.
but
But
it's easy.
theoretically, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and because Misty is, we designed it originally as a development platform. All the documentation's out there, so either us as a company could offer that, or one of our customers, especially like a tech customer, they might have an engineer that comes in and I was like, wait, this has an SDK. I wonder if it could hook into our Unikey system. Like they could build out that functionality themselves as well.
Interesting. Yeah, it makes me. I mean, it gets my brain moving, if you would, on ways to answer some of the questions I have. Okay, if it's been fascinating, and I think it's a great sort of started a probably a much longer conversation that we could have. So, if people want to find out more information to have that conversation, where's best to find you?
So you can go to our website, which is temperature.mistyrobotics.com.
Very good. Well, I appreciate you both taking the time to do this, Tim. It's great seeing you again. Ian's very nice to meet you, and Misty. Let's see, I didn't know if Misty could hear me, but Misty, I appreciate you all taking the time to do this. It's been very interesting. I think it's the beginnings of what's going to start to be the norm, and it's interesting since you've all been at it for a long time, and Sphero has sold more than probably a lot of other robotics that are out there in the marketplace. So you all definitely bring a level of expertise that I think is very different than a lot of people. So thank you for taking the time and sharing your story with the listeners.
Yeah, it's fun to talk to you.
You bet. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.